Hello everyone and welcome. This is the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County's very first Facebook Live event, our very first attempt at a broadcast. We are planning to do this every second Monday. My name is Erica. I'm an education coordinator here at the Alzheimer's Society, and part of my role is to go out and do public awareness for different groups. And of course, as of last March, we haven't been able to go out and do different presentations for community groups. So we thought one good way of bringing information out to the public is to start using our social media accounts and to do these live events. So this is new learning for me. It's the first time I've tried to do this, so please be patient with me. We were thinking about what kind of topics to cover in our Facebook Lives, and different topics that are of interest to people living with dementia and to their partners in care, as well as to the general public. But we know that one of the questions that I get most often is that question of, I'm starting to get older and I'm recognizing my memory is beginning to change. And what can I do about it? What's normal with aging? Is this normal? Am I just getting older? Or is it something that's not normal? And so we know that dementia is not a normal part of aging, and this is a question that a lot of people are thinking about. So maybe if you're out there watching, if you're thinking about, well, is this normal memory changes or not, maybe you can put a thumbs up or a happy face so I know that you're out there, and I see some of them coming up. We know that along the way, if you want to ask some questions, please do so in the chat comments. I will do my best to answer your questions along the way. I know it's a little bit of a time lag from when you type it in and when I see it, so just keep that in mind. If you're out there watching, if you want to let me know where you're watching from, that would be great. But I'll get started. So we're talking about, well, what's normal aging and what's not normal aging. So there are 10 warning signs that we usually talk about, those flags that tell us that maybe this is beyond what we would normally expect as we're getting older. And so I'll cover those 10 warning signs with you today and give you some examples about what's normal and what's not normal. So the first one is memory changes. And so when we think about memory, our brains are aging just like the rest of our bodies. And just like we can't go out and run and jump and play like we could when we were kids, our brains are just not able to process information as quickly as it did when we were younger. We actually reach optimal brain performance and speed in our 20s, and then it starts to slow down. But it's more about processing speed. So our brains are able to retain information, just we can't process the information and pull it back out again as quickly as we could when we were younger. So when you're thinking about memory, as we get older, it's more of an ability to pull that memory out when we want it. So it's a retrieval issue more so than an encoding issue. When we're talking about a disease like Alzheimer's disease, it's an encoding issue. It's trouble getting the memory to stick. So the part of the brain that's responsible for creating memory, that's the part of the brain that's affected earliest with Alzheimer's disease. So if you're living with Alzheimer's, your brain's starting to have trouble actually taking information and making it stick in the brain so that you can pull it out again and use it later when you need to. And so this is one of the big differences with memory changes with normal aging and memory changes when it's something like Alzheimer's disease. That with Alzheimer's disease, I don't know that I knew that in the first place. So for an example, if you had a good friend call you one day and you haven't talked to her in a while and you have a great conversation, and in this conversation, you're talking about, well, we need to catch up and maybe meet for coffee somewhere. So you decide what day you're going to meet and where you're going to meet, and you have a plan in place, and the day comes and you show up at the coffee shop and your friend doesn't show. So obviously you're concerned, and you call up your friend and you say, where were you? We were supposed to meet this morning and you didn't come. Now with normal aging, you might get a response from the friend saying, the friend might say, oh, I got so busy this morning and totally went out of my head. I'm so sorry. I forgot. But as soon as you called to remind them, they remembered that you had the conversation, that you had made the date. When it's something that's more concerning, your friend might say, we were supposed to meet for coffee, but I haven't haven't talked to you in quite a while. I don't recall us making that date, because the brain had trouble actually recording the information, recording that experience. And so, it's more of the repetition you start to see. Like if I ask you a question and you give me your answer, my brain's having trouble recording that interaction. So then I'll ask the question again, because as far as my brain knows, I haven't done so already. So with a dementia, it's more about the encoding issues, trying to get the information to stick. With normal aging, it's more about trying to pull that information back out again. Okay? But that's only one of 10 warning signs. And like any of these warning signs, it's not to make a diagnosis. It's those caution flags, those things that we recognize that maybe we should go see our doctor and talk about it in more detail, and it requires further investigation. So you've got memory, but another one that many people are concerned about is language changes. So many of us have trouble with word finding issues. You're talking along and suddenly, what's the word that I want to say? I just had this happen to me the other day, where that word was like hanging right in front of me and I could almost visualize it, but I just couldn't grab it. And that's pretty normal. But if it starts to impact our everyday conversations and happens with quite a bit of frequency, then that's a concern that we might want to talk to our healthcare team about, because it's impacting our social interactions. And the thing with dementia, because it's a brain disease, is that there's a comprehension piece to language as well. We can take in the auditory information, we can hear the sounds when people are talking to us, but our brain is having trouble actually making sense of what's being said. So we can start to have some comprehension problems too. So memory, those language changes, is another warning sign that we need to be aware of. Another one that when I'm doing public education sessions, when I mention this one, usually people go, oh my goodness, this is me. And then there's silence falls on the crowd. And that is the warning sign of misplacing things, because we all misplace stuff. But for most of us with normal aging, it's more of an attention issue. We're not paying attention to what we're doing. Maybe we're under a lot of stress. We have other things going on in our life. You come in with the groceries and your arms are full, so you don't put the keys on the key rack. You stick them in your coat pocket instead, and then you forgot that they're still there. So the next time you go to find them, they're not where you expect them to be. With a disease like Alzheimer's disease, though, it's more than just attention, although that's part of it. So when you find those keys, they're in a place that you wouldn't expect them to be. So there used to be a commercial for the Alzheimer's Society that showed the car keys in the sugar bowl. And the reason why I had that is exactly this point. Is we all misplace our car keys, and that's pretty normal. But you wouldn't find them in a place that doesn't make sense. You would find them on the counter, or maybe in your coat pocket, someplace like that, but you wouldn't find them in the sugar bowl. So that's the kind of things that we're looking at when it's beyond normal aging, when it's not normal. A couple things, other warning signs that we look out for that I like to put together is problems with abstract thinking and trouble with familiar tasks. You think about abstract thinking and how we require that ability to manage our finances, let's say, to be able to know what we have in our investment accounts and know what it's going to make in the next few years, and be able to, what money is coming in and what bills do I have to pay that are going out. And so as this starts to change, people can have trouble with the financial decisions and not pay their bills and have trouble knowing what's coming in and what's going out. And if this is something that's always, somebody's always been really on top of their finances and making good decisions and paying their bills on time and never having any of those troubles, and now that's not happening, that's the trouble with a familiar task. And so often what I hear from care partners is that's one of the early things that they notice with their family member is that I open up the drawer and all the bills were sitting there in the drawer and they weren't paid. And that's never, mom's always paid the bills on time, and that was a really surprising thing. Or maybe it was one of the utilities actually got cut off because it hadn't been paid, and that's the first notice that family members recognize there's something going on. So that trouble with familiar tasks can start to happen when we see changes in these other areas that I'm discussing today. We also have disorientation in time and place. So you think about memory and how memory puts you in your here and now. In order for me to know that I'm here in my home office doing a Facebook Live on Monday, November 16th, my brain has to be able to access recent memories, to know the steps that brought me to this place, this here and now, to be able to recognize things in my environment and know where I am and why I'm here. And as people start to have trouble accessing recent memories, they can even be in a familiar place and get disoriented because their brain is having trouble recognizing those wayfinders in the community that tell them that I need to turn right here to get to the store, or this is the street I have to go on in order to get home. And so people can become at great risk for going missing. And that's one of the things we really need to be careful and proactive about to keep people safe in their community. We could also see people saying or doing things that is not consistent with the current here and now of today. So if I'm having trouble accessing memories from my most recent past, I might say something like, I want to go visit my friend that lives down the street, but meanwhile that friend moved away to another community 3 months ago. And I should know that, but in this moment I'm not able to access the memories that would make sense of that. So I'm accessing something from further past, so I say something that's not consistent with the here and now. So those are kinds of changes that we look out for, and we don't usually see those kinds of things happening with normal aging. The other ones that I want to talk about, so these ones are also fairly consistent symptoms that we see with other things like depression. So dementia and depression have some overlapping symptoms. We see change in personality and change in emotion, and also apathy. So those are things that we need to look out for. When we're talking about apathy with dementia, it's more about I'm having trouble getting started on a task, more so than I'm just not interested in doing this task. But these warning signs, they are not, again, to make a diagnosis. They are things to be aware of and to bring to the doctor to discuss that require further investigation. Because things like depression, or sometimes things like hypothyroidism or vitamin deficiencies, or a lot of stress in your life can actually cause some of these changes. And so going to talk to your doctor or other members of your healthcare team about what's changing for you so that they can investigate further and discover what exactly is going on. So along the way, I see some of you coming in and watching, which is great. But if you have any questions for me, if you want to type them into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. If you've been concerned about any of these warning signs and you want some more information, you can please let me know. Thinking about if you want you to think about our brain health and keeping our brain as healthy as possible. So dementia is not a normal part of aging, but age is the biggest risk factor for dementia because the longer we live, the more time different risk factors have to impact our brains, causing these diseases. And so we talk a lot about the importance of brain health, so keeping our brain as healthy as possible. And the Alzheimer's Society of Simcoe County is going to be doing a 4-week Heads Up for Healthier Brain series starting this Friday. So it will be Fridays from 1 to 3 p.m. on Zoom, so it's virtual. And we'll be talking about these warning signs in more detail and not normal versus normal aging in more detail. But we'll also be going through different things that you can do to help maximize your brain health. So it's thinking about physical activity and cognitive activity, what we eat, managing stress, all those kinds of things that impact the health of our brain. So if you'd like to join us, you can always give us a call. Our phone number is 705-722-1066. You can messenger us on our Facebook site and leave an email or some way that we can contact you and get more details that way. You could also email the Alzheimer's Society, which is Simcoe County at alzheimerssociety.ca. And this is our first Facebook Live not next Monday, but the Monday after, which is November the 30th at noon. I will be coming back and doing another Facebook Live, and that one I'm going to be talking about the services that we provide here in Simcoe County for people living with dementia, for family partners in care, and also for the general public. So if you'd like to tune in then and find out more about our society, I'd be really glad to see you. But I don't see any comments, so I'm going to sign off for now. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again.